Okay, so good evening, everybody. I think it's time to get started. So let me first of all welcome everybody. My name is John Lannon. I'm the CEO of Doras, and thanks for joining us for this information webinar. Over the next month or two, we'll be running several information sessions like this. And the idea is that we want to help people in some of the areas that we already provide support. And our first webinar tonight is on citizenship, but we'll also be looking at other issues like family reunification in the next few weeks. We'll also be looking at housing and tenancy rights. And we're already planning some other sessions for the month of May. Now, some of our sessions are aimed at people who use our services or might need to use our services, or might use the services of a similar organization somewhere else in the country. Some of them are aimed at people who support or provide other services to rights holders who are refugees or international protection applicants or have come from any part of the world to work or study or live in Ireland. So tonight's session is a mix of both of those. It's for people who have a right to citizenship, as for people who want to know more about how people would claim that right or become citizens of Ireland. Doras has been around for 21 years almost at this stage, and we've helped a lot of people with a lot of immigration, a lot of residency, a lot of integration issues. And we've started a lot of campaigns. We've been involved in a lot of other campaigns to bring about change. Changes in policy, sometimes. Changes in the way people are treated. Changes in the way we all live or that we all work together. So I guess speaking of change, COVID-19 has made a big difference to how we do our work. It's more difficult to meet people now, but it's also an opportunity to do things like this. More of us are using technology now, so we can provide information more easily. And we're just very happy to be able to do that. So tonight, two of my colleagues, Fiona and Rachel, will take you through a practical explanation of applying for citizenship by naturalization based on residence here in Ireland. Now, this is going to be in English, but we'll have all the information available in 3 other languages on our website. We have it there already, so you can go to read it in Pashto, you can go to read it in Arabic, or you can go to read it in French on our website, and we'll give you the link for that before the end of this session. We're also making a recording of this, and that'll be available for anybody who cannot attend tonight, or for anybody who wants to listen back to it again. Now, as we go through the session tonight, please use the Q&A feature, the questions feature at the bottom of your screen to ask any questions that you have, or you can use the chat facility. And we'll try to get to as many of those questions as possible when Fiona and Rachel have finished their presentation. So with that, thanks again to everybody for joining, and I'll hand over to Fiona. So over to you, Fiona.
Great, thank you, John. And good evening to everyone who's kindly joined us tonight, this evening, for this webinar on, as John was saying, citizenship. Firstly, I'd like to say a few words about Doras and perhaps how we came about as an organisation. So we were established in the year 2000, 21 years ago, as John said, to provide support to asylum seekers living in DP in the Limerick region. And our office is based in Limerick City. Our vision is a society where equality and respect for the human rights of all people are realised. And really our mission is to achieve this through personal and collaborative advocacy, the law, through intercultural dialogue, through support, inclusion and empowerment, working at local, national and international levels. So this evening, we're going to really focus on 6 main areas of importance when making your application for citizenship. So firstly, we will look at who is eligible to apply and who isn't. Then we'll look at the application process itself and how to actually make the application. We'll then spend some time focusing on the relevant supporting documentation that you'll need to allow the application to be processed fully. And as you'll see, there's quite a few pieces of supporting documentation that you need to include in this application. We'll also cover possible reasons why an application might be refused. And then what steps you need to take if your application is actually granted and approved. We'll also cover any relevant updates you need to know with regards to the COVID-19 pandemic and the impact ongoing restrictions have had with the application process as a whole. We'll then finish up, as John said, at the end of the session, giving you a chance to ask questions. So, who can apply? So, in order to apply, you have to meet certain criteria. To be eligible, you must first fulfill what is known as reckonable residence. This means that you need to have either a stamp 1 visa, a stamp 3 visa, or a stamp 4 visa. And you need to have these visas for the correct amount of years. Unfortunately, if you're on a stamp 2 student visa or a visit visa, you're not eligible to apply for this application. However, anyone who has been declared a refugee or has subsidiary protection are eligible to apply. Generally, you must have been living in Ireland for 5 years and you must have had your permission registered with GNIB for 5 out of possible 9 previous years. And it's important to note that refugees and those married to Irish nationals may apply after just 3 years. So, eligibility criteria. Continuous residence. So you must be able to show that you've had no break in your immigration permission for the immediate year prior to the date of your application. So this means that there has to be no gap in your between the expiry date and a new issue date on your Irish residence permit. And that has to be for the previous 365 days from the actual date of your application. There's also a requirement to reside continuously in the state, but this doesn't mean that you can't leave the state at all, and absences up to, say, 6 weeks in any given year is allowed. You must satisfy the minister that you're of good character, and you must also have the intention to live in Ireland once your application has been approved. It's also important to note that there's no actual time frame or deadline in which you have to start your application, and you'll not be penalised for putting an application in sometime after the time that you've accrued your reckonable residence. So you can apply at any time after that. Okay, so who can apply? For certain children born in Ireland, there's an automatic right for citizenship. Children born to Irish or British parents, or parents declared as refugees, are automatically Irish citizens. However, children born in Ireland to non-EEA parents are only entitled to automatic citizenship if one or both parents have legally been resident for at least 3 years prior to the birth of the child. And any other child can only apply after their parents have obtained Irish citizenship. So, who can apply? Okay, so there are 4 different application forms for citizenship on the immigration website. There's Form 8, and this is the form used for all applicants aged 18 and over. There's a Form 9, and this is for a child resident in Ireland of a naturalised parent. Form 10 is for a child claiming Irish descent or is of Irish associations, if neither parent are yet naturalised. And then there's Form 11 for a child born in the state without any entitlement to citizenship, but if neither parent is naturalised yet, but was born in Ireland and has been legally resident as part of the family unit for, say, 5 years or more. Next slide. Thanks, Rachel. Okay, so how to submit the application. So when you're ready to submit the completed form, you have to pay an application fee, and this is €175. And this applies for all applications. And unfortunately, if this is not included in your application, the application won't even be looked at. So you have to make sure that you include this. And the fee must be paid via a bank draft. This is the only way you can pay this fee, and it has to be made payable to the Secretary General at the Department of Justice. Just to note, it is a non-refundable payment, and it's required for each application that you do submit for a certificate of naturalisation. And then all forms and all supporting documentation should be sent into this address here in the Citizenship Unit, Rosanna Road, or also known as PO Box 73 in Tipperary Town. And we do recommend that you register your application because of all the supporting documentation that you've got in there. Okay, so talking about supporting documentation to take up the majority of the webinar, I'd say. So you need to support certain parts of documentation, and without them, your application won't be processed and it will be refused, and you'll lose your €175. You need to include your current passport, as well as any expired passports that you have had since living in Ireland. You'll need to include a photocopy of these passports as well, of the biometric page, the photo page of each passport. And it's important to note that refugees and those with subsidiary protection must obtain an affidavit stating why they do not or cannot obtain a national passport. You also need to submit a certified copy of your birth certificate, and also a copy of a certified translation if that's relevant, if the birth certificate's not in English. A birth affidavit may be submitted instead of a birth certificate if you can prove it's just not possible for you to get a birth certificate. You have to show proof of this, and it's not enough for you to have just lost your birth certificate. You also need to submit 2 recent colour passport size photos. So these need to be taken within the last 30 days. And these photographs need to be signed by the solicitor, who you'll need to complete your statutory declaration. So if we go on to the next slide, this is the actual statutory declaration. You'll need to have this signed. You'll need to go to a solicitor or a commissioner of oaths to get this signed. And it's really important to note that this form needs to be signed and dated in the presence of that solicitor or commissioner of oaths, and that the dates at the top and bottom of each section of the declaration that you can see here, the dates need to be the same. They need to match. That's really important. Your application will be refused if that's not the case. So also, I'd say make sure you clearly print your full name and make sure it's spelled exactly as you stated it at the beginning of the application in section 1. And you'll need to ensure that the solicitor has also ticked the correct box that you can see there, showing how they have identified you. So, and if you're using the ID documentation section, then make sure that you have that piece of documentation with you at your appointment with the solicitor. So that's the start of the supporting documentation. We have a few more slides regarding that. And I think at this stage, at this point, I'll hand over to you, Rachel, to take over.
Yeah, thanks, Fiona. As you said there, that form is really important. So just make sure everything is properly filled in. We've had a lot of people refused on really minor errors on that form. But continuing on, as we noted already, there's a lot of supporting documentation, so just bear with us. You'll need to put in a copy of your current Irish residence permit, your IRP card. For those of you who've been here quite a while, that's formally known as your GNIB card. You'll also then need 3 different proofs of residence. And I'll go through this in a little bit of detail because this is something I think people get quite confused about. So for each year of residence that you are claiming for your reckonable residency, so if it's the 5 years, if you're on a general stamp 4, or if it's 3 years, if you're a refugee or a spouse of Irish national, you will need proof of residence for each of those years. So 3 for each. So it could be 15 in total if you're doing it based on 5 years, or 9 if you're doing it based on 3. And that's really important. They will come back and ask you for these documents if you don't submit them from the beginning. And then it's back and forth and it really prolongs your application. So it's important to make sure you have these. They don't have to be highly official, you know, from Department of Justice. It could be anything with your name and address on it. Could be a tenancy agreement, gas, electricity, phone bills, bank statements, letters from revenue, that's a really easy one to obtain, social welfare letters as well, letters from employment. So again, anything at all. Try not to stress too much about specifically where the letter is coming from, as long as you have that proof of address. You'll also need a letter from your current employer if you are employed. You'll need copies of 3 recent payslips, no older than 6 months. So really the easiest thing to do when you know you're going to submit your application, you can just ask your employer for your most recent 3 payslips. Copies of P60 or your tax statement, and you can get that from the revenue. A lot of it is online now, and it's really simple, really easy to go on, log on with your details, print off your P60, print off your tax statements. If you need help with that, again, that's something that a service such as Citizens Information or Doras or another NGO could help you with. If you're on a social welfare payment now or any time in the past 3 years, you will need to get a letter from your local Intrio office just outlining exactly what payments you've been on and how much you received. And it's important to note here, it's not going to have a negative impact on your application. I know there's quite a number of people that are quite concerned that if they are on a payment, if they're on disability or on job seekers for any amount of time, that they won't be able to get citizenship, but it won't have any negative impact. You'll also need copies of bank statements, and this is for all of your bank accounts. So if you have a credit union account as well as a current account, you will have to get statements for both of those, and at least 3 of the previous 6 months. So again, if you know kind of roughly when you want to submit your application, just wait until then and you can go into the bank and they can print off your most recent statements for you. If you're applying on the basis of marriage to an Irish national, you'll need evidence of your marriage, so a certified copy of your marriage certificate. You will need a copy of your completed online residency checker. And I'm going to go into a bit more detail on that specifically. It is a little tricky to fill in. Copy of your public services card, so your PPS card if you have that, and a copy of your e-tax clearance certificate. And that is a new requirement. Again, that is something you can go online to Revenue, print off, really simple, really easy, but it is now a requirement. And for anybody who's not sure, a certified copy is taking the original document and a copy of the document to a solicitor, and they will stamp the copy for you. So again, pretty simple, but time consuming. Unfortunately, at the moment with COVID-19, it can be quite difficult to find a solicitor to do this. So yeah, sometimes you might just have to wait to get that part done. As I said, the naturalization residency calculator, everyone's favorite little addition game, we'll say. This page is on the INIS website. So for any of you who are looking to apply and you're not sure about your dates, this is what you can use to calculate your time in the state that will count for your application. So when you go in, and you can use this link here once we have it up on our website, you type in your name, type in your application date. So this is the date that you are going to submit your application. It doesn't let you put in any date, we'll say in the past, so it'll only let you put in a date from today going forward. The next section here is whether you are making this application based on residence, and that is the 5-year requirement, or if you're making the application based on marriage, civil partnership with an Irish citizen, and this is a 3 years requirement. What you'll do then is you'll start to put in the dates of your stamps, and the dates you want to put in these boxes here, where it says oldest stamp, that's your very first GNIB card. And it's important that you need to put in the date that's on your GNIB card and not the date that's on a letter that you might have received. So it's from when you actually registered your permission. And I know, again, that can be a little bit confusing, but they do check these things. And we have seen people who have put in certain dates on this calculator, printed it off, submitted it with their application, and it has come back refused because their dates with GNIB are actually different than the dates that they've put here. So make sure that the dates you're putting in are dates on your GNIB cards. And what you'll do here then under stamp type, which I can't do it now because it's not a live system here, but when you click on this, it will do a drop-down menu and you can select either stamp 1, stamp 3, stamp 4, etc. Once you have all of those in, at the bottom of the page, there's a little button that says calculate. You click on that and it should give you a green tick to tell you that you have enough time, you're good to go. If you get a red X, you don't have enough time yet and you'll have to wait. Another form, a new form, as you can see, it's much nicer looking than some of the other documents, is the change of address form. So we have actually been informed that recently they're trying to go through the backlog of applications, which is great. However, they're finding that a lot of people aren't getting back to them, and they think it might be because they've changed address, there's a new postal address. So they have this new form that you can use. As you can see, it's quite simple. You put in your name, date of birth, your person ID number, and your citizenship application number. And you can put in then the rest of your information and your new address. and you can inform them that you have changed address. This is really important. It's if you don't inform them that you've moved, they could send you a letter asking for documents, or they might even send your decision and you won't know that you've received it. Now, the hard part, I guess, reasons for refusal. Unfortunately, not everyone is going to be granted, and there are quite a number of reasons that they could refuse you. So the first one that we see quite often, and Fiona alluded to this at the beginning, is absences from the state, which are longer than 6 weeks. So in the year prior to your application, you cannot be out of the state more than 6 weeks. If you are, and you have a really good reason, if it's for employment, medical emergency, or some other reason, you need to inform them of that, and you need to have the evidence, you need to have the proof. So if you had to go abroad for a surgery or some other medical treatment, make sure you have documentation for that. Otherwise, they will refuse your application. Criminal convictions, again, a really important one. What you can do for this is go to your local Garda station, and you could ask them to print you a letter to see if you have any convictions in the state. And any conviction that you have, no matter how small it is, even if it was 10 years ago, you've paid the fine, it's been discharged, you still need to put this in your application. We've seen that before, that they've come back refused. Someone thought, oh, it was a really long time ago, it doesn't matter anymore. But in the eyes of the state, you've omitted a really important piece of information, so they won't give you citizenship based on that. Gaps in residence as well. We stated this at the beginning, you can't have any gap in your registration in the year before you make your application. Now, I know at the moment, it's a bit difficult with COVID, and I might go into that once we get to the COVID section. They're not going to penalize anybody who has any gap during the automatic extension period during COVID. So if you haven't been able to register because of COVID in the last year, rest assured you'll be okay. That won't count as a gap. It's for anybody that was prior to this that is missing information. And incomplete or incorrectly filled in forms, again, mainly the statutory declaration form that we went over. If anything is incorrectly filled, they can refuse you on that, and you've lost €175 for, what might be a pretty simple mistake. So it's important before you submit to just double check everything, make sure it's filled in, capital letters if you can, block letters, black pen, really legible, make it super easy for them to read. Now, there might be other reasons for refusal that we don't have listed here. So if you do get a refusal and you're unsure, it's best to consult with an NGO or possibly with a solicitor to see if there's something that can be done. And we'll move on to happier times. What to do if granted. So if you are granted your application, you will be sent a letter. It will say, congratulations, you are granted your citizenship. Now you have to pay the fee. Unfortunately, it's quite high. So €950 for an adult, €200 for a minor, €200 for a widow, widower, or a surviving civil partner of Irish citizen. But if you are a recognized refugee or a stateless person, there is no fee once you are granted. You'll then be invited to a citizenship ceremony, and you'll receive your naturalization certificate. They are postponed at the moment due to COVID, unfortunately. They're really nice ceremonies. They're a really positive thing that you can go to, but again, we'll probably have to wait until at least the end of 2021 before they resume those. And once you have your certificate, then you can apply for your Irish passport. And again, at the moment, passports are not being processed unless it's for an absolute urgent emergency situation. So we'll continue with that theme of COVID-19. It's important to know at the moment, I'm sure some of you have seen in the media, there's a very large backlog of cases, over 20,000. So there is a delay in processing. We've seen some people waiting 2-3 years. It's not unusual. The department is asking people not to submit applications if they need to travel in the near future, or you might need your original documents back really quickly. The wait time for acknowledgement and returning your original documents, such as your passport, and your original birth certificates, etc., is 8 weeks at least. But we have seen that it's quite longer than that for some people. You're talking a few months. So it's something to keep in mind if you're looking to submit in the near future and you know you will need your passport for whatever reason. It might be best to just wait a few months before you submit that application. If you do require your passport for an emergency reason, again, such as medical reasons, you can email them, and this is taken directly from their website. Email them with the reasons, provide a color scanned copy of your document. So again, when you're putting in your application, make sure you keep copies of everything that you have submitted. You will also need to send them a letter for your medical consultant appointment, and that it's for the purposes of emergency travel only. They really want to reiterate that. So unfortunately, at the moment, it is taking quite a long time to return documents. And there is a temporary system, as I noted before, for the citizenship ceremonies. So instead of doing the ceremonies, what they're doing is they are contacting anyone who has been granted citizenship. And in that letter, you will have what's called an oath of fidelity. So you will need to take that document to a solicitor and sign it in front of the solicitor. And that's important. Make sure you wait until you get there to do it in front of them. And then you will submit that back to the department. So if you are granted in the next coming weeks or months, they will send you a letter outlining exactly what you need to do. If you are confused at all with that, again, you can contact Doras, you can contact any other NGO and they'll walk you through it. It is a new system, and they're envisioning maybe until, they said originally May, but it could continue on further, which it looks like it might with COVID. There's also a new online payment system, which is great. You don't have to go back to the bank to get another bank draft, to pay the fee. It's all online, making it much simpler. And that's kind of it that we have for the moment.
We will help in whatever way we can. So you have our phone numbers there. The landline is not been answered at the moment. It will get transferred. So I do encourage you to use the number below it, 083 080 2378. Contact us on that number. Or also you can email info@doras.org. So you can contact us by phoning or by sending WhatsApp to the 083 number. Okay, I'm sorry if there are any other questions that we didn't get to, but we will look back on the questions. We will make sure that we cover everything in the information that we provide on our website if possible. If you have any follow-up questions, if you have any specific issues, then please do get in touch with us. We will do our best to help and to provide support. I just want to thank everybody who attended tonight. I hope this session was useful for you. We will put the recording on our website as well. And before I finish, I just want to check with Fiona and Rachel to see if either of you have any last comments to make.
Yeah, thanks, John. Yeah, I would just encourage anyone that has any specific questions that they need answering regarding their application, just please give us a call. That's what we're there for. And we can talk you through any issues that you have.
Yeah, same for me. Thanks to everyone for attending. And yeah, if you have any questions at all, no matter how small, do get in touch with us. We're still working away, even though we might be stuck at home, and we're still here to help.
Absolutely. So as Rachel said, we're still here. We thank you again for attending, and we We'll have more of these webinars coming up over the next few weeks. The next one is in 2 weeks. It's on family reunification. You're all very welcome to attend that and to spread the word to others as well and tell anybody else that might be interested in attending. So thanks to everybody and good night.